Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and members of council. I'd like to welcome you to the Tuesday, August 8th, 2023 special meeting of the Hayden City Council. Could I have a roll call vote, please? Abby?
Council President Roeder.
Here.
Councilmember DePriest.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
And Councilmember Satterfield is absent. We do have a quorum.
All right, excellent. The first item today on our workshop is to discuss the survey results that we had from our citizen engagement survey. Brett, did you have anything that you wanted to go over on that?
Well, in the last meeting, we went through the results. Well, actually, it's been a couple of meetings ago, and then I just had a quick update. So the survey is online. The public has full access to all the results of it. Some of the highlights in there, talk about, one of the number one concerns people have is growth issues. And secondarily to that is transportation issues. And so the direction today was for the council to have a workshop where you could talk about the land use map, the comp plan, all of those items, and go through and see what you want to do, what direction you want to give for that. I also put on there, transportation issues. We have intersections. If you want to talk about intersections that you feel are important to work on, and give some priority to those as well, that would be appropriate as a secondary topic. But really today is the council has wanted time to talk about the comp plan and just brainstorm through whatever thoughts and ideas you have, and then give staff direction on what you want to do. So I won't go back through the survey. I think we've done that a couple times. So
I think we would all agree that there is strong support amongst the survey for working on controlling growth and density in our population here. And second was very high, 68%, if I recall correctly. The public have big concerns about our transportation systems. I don't know how much we'll be able to fix that today, but well, how about if I start off with, does anyone have any transportation issues that you'd like to discuss? Sam, I'm sorry, Councilmember White. Right, we're not in the workshop.
Yes. So I know that these were not high priority on the survey, but I'm concerned about along Hayden, Hutter and Hayden, and also Atlas and Hayden. There have been some accidents, major accidents along Meyer and Hayden, and I know that's out of our jurisdiction. But I was talking with Post Falls Highway District Chair Tyler, and he said that there are things we can do like Hutter and Hayden. That's 3/4 in Hayden, 1/4 Post Falls, and they're considering putting a stop sign, flashing stop sign, and they would probably Post Falls, a stop sign with the lights around it for four-way stop.
Four-way stop.
Four-way stop. Yes, and that way, because people just can't get through when they're on Hutter, get through that intersection if there's a lot of traffic. So just a temporary measure to just prevent accidents. That's a thought. Possibly a signal, or not a signal, but a flashing stop sign on four-way stop on Atlas as a temporary measure until we can get that traffic circle done. And also another idea is to slow down the speed on Hayden. Right now it's 45 from the villas to 41 villas at Carrington, and if we could slow it down to 35.
To where?
All the way to 40. Well, we don't have jurisdiction there, but at least slow it down up to Hutter. We could, that could help a little bit to help people get across.
Comments from other council members?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. I was, just kind of save that comment for the meeting tonight, but yeah, a lot of accidents out there of late, a couple fatalities recently out there, and there's a lot of concern and warranted concern about out there. I know it's probably in the eventual down the road capital improvement plan type of thing, or as more growth occurs out that way, but I think we need to get to it prior to how we're going to enforce the speed. That's part of the problem. Now you have the inattentive drivers who we don't think the laws apply to them, or they're too busy being distracted by other things, but at least we need to make some kind of an effort, whether it be the flashing and or reduction of, at least make the attempts to try and do something. This is something we might want to partner with Post Falls, because that's Hayden Avenue is becoming, and I know when I've traveled up, and especially going north-south, trying to, whether it be Hutter or Atlas or Meyer even farther out, yeah, it can be pretty hairy. And if you're not patient, then you're going to see the results that we've been seeing in the summer.
Council President Roder, comments?
Thank you, Mayor. The transportation issue is not a simple fix. It isn't about just having money and adding more lights for controlling traffic. What the problem, the large problem is that Hayden, back when I first moved here in 1982, I think we were like 1,200 people, and the roads were built to accommodate a small amount of people on small roads. So now that we have increase in volume, not only due to the city, but the growth around the city, that traffic is now on very narrow roads that were never designed for that volume. So our problem, and it's a very difficult problem to overcome, is we have to make more lanes. We have to make the roads wider. That means acquiring right away from private property owners, which is hugely expensive, and it impacts those homeowners quite a bit. So the point I want to make is that as we have over the last several years been looking at the traffic problem, we don't have the money to fix this large problem that's not just adding lights. It's acquiring all the right-of-way. You're looking at, I think, Hayden and Ramsey, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably at least $1 million worth of right-of-way acquisition in that alone. So this all adds up really fast. So again, I understand our survey said this is a problem, we want to fix it, but we are now hamstrung with where do we get the money from to do this? Now, one of the areas that I have worked on is with the Hayden Urban Renewal Agency. They have money, and we have, like we worked on and redid the Hayden Avenue between 95 and Government Way. We have money into studies on Government Way intersections. That is one source of money that by the time that the Urban Renewal Agency ends in 2029, there's estimated $12 million that will go to that fund. My hope is that as whoever is leading our city will direct that money to fix roads, because that's one source. Now, mind you, they can't use that money everywhere in the city. There's a urban renewal district, and the money can only be used in that district. So that's one of our really good sources of income for fixing roads, and I applaud our urban renewal district because that's been the focus.
Regarding a four-way stop there at Hutter and Hayden, would the Alan, maybe you can, is that within city jurisdiction? Wholly or partly?
I don't believe it's wholly in our district. We would have to work with Post Falls Highway District. I
think Councilmember White alluded to a portion of it is and a portion of it isn't.
It's been on our capital improvement project.
Would I hear general agreement from council to ask our Public Works Department to investigate the cost of a four-way sign?
We'd have to investigate the study for it, and then the construction, if it's so warranted, which I suspect it probably would warrant.
Okay. All right.
Along with it, and I'm not sure, Atlas is only a two-way, isn't it?
It is.
It is. I would suggest that we also consider both of those, at least 4 ways. If people can floor it and get from Atlas to Hutter, but if you get up along there, I think the more likely it is that you'll emphasize the importance of speed control. And both those intersections are becoming quite dangerous.
Please, folks. Please, folks. Excuse me, folks. We're trying to work here. Thank you. Could you also, do we also have some information on the Atlas Hayden intersection? If we say 4-way stop?
We should have pretty current data on that from our signal roundabout study.
Okay.
So we could probably easily get that analysis to see if it currently warrants a 4-way stop.
Do I hear a general agreement from council that we ask them to get that updated information? You would, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Bring that scope back to the council.
Okay.
One other thing, if I may, it's something I think that we talked about, is that the intersections, or certain intersections in Hayden, are graded A, B, C, D based on their queue length. And I think we would be helpful if we could, I would like to see a copy of those intersections so that we know which intersections will be impacted with any future development or growth, so that we can connect that intersection and to that development and say, hey, if it's already an F, how can we say it's okay to add more development when it'll put more pressure on that intersection? Now, each north, south, east, and west intersection route is rated separately, and I think there's a rating on the intersection in general. I want to know east, north, south, east, and west, so that we can take a look at it. And I know that that's something that is easily attainable if it's in our transportation plan or wherever, where those ratings are.
So some of our intersections only go as low as F, huh?
I don't know. We could change that.
Incomplete. Ellen, can you get a hold of those intersections?
If we have them, they're in the transportation plan already. So that's what we have.
Can I also ask a question, because I know that I am not really clear on it. I've been hearing through the grapevine, this type of stuff, that there are certain requirements, statutory requirements related to these grading, and that this is more particular, I think, speed limits that I've been hearing this about, that at a certain street rates a certain level, it can't be 25, it has to be 35 or vice versa.
Correct.
Okay.
Statute.
Does that apply to stop signs at intersection testing also? So the data may show, hopefully not, that, well, there's not enough traffic here to put a 4-way. Is that a possibility?
It's not just traffic, but it's traffic and accidents. And yes, it's a possibility.
So as much as we might want to do it, the data statutorily might not allow us to do it.
Yeah, because, and you got to think about it a little bit different realm than what you're thinking. You're thinking in one realm. You're thinking, I don't want to wait a minute to get out onto this road, right? Because I don't want to be delayed a minute, and that's what the general population impacts are. The flip side of that is I stop 200 cars in an hour to let 3 cars through, and so you're now delaying 200 cars for the benefit of one.
Understand? Yeah.
And so that's the thought process behind that. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say, strategy-wise on getting these fixed, we have an item on the agenda tonight for going for a grant for Honeysuckle and Ramsey. We have the money for that intersection in multiple places. That's the only project really that is close enough, ready to go, that we could submit, because the grant has to be done by next year. No, we're talking about other things. But if we were to do that, it basically just moves that money to another intersection. And so, as Matt alluded to, we're looking to HURA to fix perhaps 2 of the intersections, Honeysuckle and Government Way, Miles and Government Way, and if they have more along Government Way, because that's where they're at. So a couple of those intersections, if we can get the grant on Ramsey and Honeysuckle, then, according to the survey and according to what they have here, Hayden Avenue and Ramsey really was probably the #1 intersection. And number 2 is Honeysuckle and Ramsey. And the Hayden Avenue and Ramsey, we have funds, but that one's going to be a significant project. Right away, probably $3.5 million. And then we had enough money to do 3 of those without the grant, so Atlas and Hayden was the other one. The Hayden Avenue and Hutter Road was lower on the survey results, 10%, but there have been some recent accidents and things that doing some interim, flashing lights or something like that is something that I think on a staff level we've talked about doing. So we'll get you that information. So those intersections that I just mentioned, that's basically 6 of those intersections. If there's a way through to make improvements to those, it doesn't solve everything that Matt's talking about, but it helps with a lot of the points in the city that we have traffic at particular times during the day. So, anyways, that's the hope side of things, is that we have a way through for about 6 intersections. We use that one.
Oh, excellent. Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the transportation issues? Okay, let's roll into the future growth and the 2040 comp plan, future land use. Comments, observations from council? Proposals, throwing things out on the table and seeing where they fall.
Well, it appears as though we're into that. I have a, shall we say, presentation plan, which is going to take 5, 10, 15 minutes. I don't know if we want to go there now or have initial comments. So if we want to go there now, I'd be happy to go there. If not, we want to just kind of have initial comments, whatever. But I'm ready to start for that.
Mr. Roeder, initial comments?
Without going into great detail, I don't have a presentation. So, I'll be anxious to hear what Ed has to say. And Sandy, I appreciate input. I think that's the purpose of this workshop, is to throw these ideas around and cook them and see what we come up with. But one of the big things is I started thinking about our survey. And I want to ask maybe some obvious questions, but I want to ask that of Brett. Was the survey that we paid conducted in a scientific way?
Yes, he said it was.
And so the principles of probability math were applied.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be able to fully trust the outcome of that.
Yeah, I think he gave a plus or minus 4 points or something like that.
But it would be prudent for a city like Hayden to look at those results and make decisions based on that information. Yeah.
It's a tool to use. It's not, the way the questions are asked, there could be, side interpretation, things like that. But I think it's a tool that gives you some good indications and ideas of some direction.
So when I look at it to give kind of a summary of the results of that survey, the way I look at it is, I would say it's the will of the people. We heard clearly from over 1,000 people, and the will of the people is critical in our comp plan. We need to hear what they have to say, because it is their city. They pay the taxes. They're invested here. There's a lot of people here today that, care and love this city, as I do and other members here. So what I would propose is that we would, because the comp plan is a living document, my basic proposal would be that we amend our comp plan and include the results of the survey as part of it that can be used to evaluate application of the comp plan. It's the will of the people. It was scientifically done. It was done in a scientific way. We accepted it. We paid a professional to do it. In fact, I will make the statement that I agree more with the results of that survey than initially what was done for the input from the public, because there was a small amount of people that provided input into the comp plan originally. So again, what I'm saying as a proposal is we take the results of the survey, we amend our comp plan and bring it into the comp plan being used to guide our city for the future.
Ms. White?
Yes, I would like to say that the survey, we can pick and choose the answers we want, but I don't believe it was fully scientific because there were a lot of leading questions where people could not give the answer they wanted. They were forced to give an answer to move on. And the gentleman who presented the survey to us admitted that. There were, I think that a lot of the, because of that, people could not say exactly what they wanted. There was nothing on the survey about certain items, like urban renewal was not on here. Our performance was not on here. Things like this. I think that the survey, we can pick and choose things on it, but I would not put it in code. I would not put it into the plan. I don't think it was.
I don't believe that the urban renewal or how the citizens are viewing the job we are doing is a part of the potential changes to the comprehensive plan that we're doing right now. And from my experience, okay, granted it goes back a few years, but this was a totally scientific study within the parameters, what a plus or minus 4
But
months.
people could not give the answers they wanted. They were forced to give certain answers
Can I
based
make a comment about
on how
that?
it was leading.
There was part of the survey where you could answer, write down,
Right,
and write down what you thought about things. So, I mean, there's that opportunity.
Right, yeah.
So they
those
were
are very
able to
helpful.
give their opinion if they wanted to.
Yeah, and some people said they didn't feel it was scientific because their questions were leading. So,
Well, moving on from that, let's take a look at perhaps, just because it's going to be a great dartboard, Mr. DePriest, how about if you
Sure.
get us started in a
Sure.
one.
I'll click on that when I'm ready to go. First of all, I'd kind of like to read a little bit of a preface here. If I can see you guys. Start off with a couple things. And there's been discussion here already and I saw a posting this morning. And contrary to what I saw posted this morning, the survey was not a report card. Okay?
Sorry, could you stand by the
Okay.
Since we're recording,
Okay, sorry about that. The survey was stated many, many times to gather, spies, to gather concerns and priorities of the community. Okay, and it was just kind of in addition or an addendum to what was originally, as Matt alluded to, the original input. And it was kind of a 2 or 3 year follow-up. I would think, at least this is how I was looking at it and why I had been asking for it for a long time, since even before we did it. And in my opinion, the survey confirmed what was expected and to give us data related to what the citizens are truly concerned with. And that again reinforced that it's growth, density, and traffic. No surprise. That's exactly what I expected to really show up and be confirmed. There's some talk out there so that nothing has occurred over the last 1.5 to 2 years to better manage growth and density. So I'm going to review a couple things here. To those who don't seem to recognize or acknowledge what changes have been made in the last 2 years. Number one, and probably most related to density, was when the reduction of mixed-use dwelling units per acre, which was at 20 dwelling units per acre, was reduced to 12 dwelling units per acre. That is, if you look at all of the mixed use on the future land use map, that alone is very significant. City removed residential multifamily, which allowed 14 plus dwellings per acre, and replaced it with mixed residential, which is capped at a maximum of 8 dwelling units per acre.
14 to 8. Again, significant reduction related to growth and density. They created 2 mixed-use zones, which is the purple on the map. Mixed-use 1 does not allow any residential mixed-use development on approximately 800 acres that are contiguous to the proposed Hutter bypass until the Hutter bypass is a done deal, if ever. That's been worked for 30 years. They returned the standard of approval to consider the context of the neighborhood, which in my opinion, and the reason that I pushed for it, was to give the people in those neighborhoods more weight to their voice, to the development that is proposed in their neighborhood. Now, what is mixed residential? Mixed residential is single homes, duplex, triplex, fourplex. Okay, again, capped at 8 dwellings per acre. Okay. Now today, we are and I am hopefully going to present some of what I hope are the final touches to the future land use map to reflect the concerns that, in my opinion, the survey confirmed. The people expressed that they recognize a need for a variety of housing types. Okay? That means all types, single homes, duplex, triplex, fourplex, and yes, some mixed-use apartments. Mixed use, when I say mixed use, I'm basically talking about residential apartments over commercial on the ground floor. My primary concern is related to where the higher density mixed use and the like are placed in the future and how many. I believe that the higher density housing, especially the mixed use, should be located on larger arterials where the ingress and egress is on the larger, wider streets so that people aren't having, so that it's not placed within the, what are currently residential areas with the smaller, Dakota, Miles, Orchard, those type of streets, which are narrow streets, okay? So that people don't have to come out of these larger, denser complexes, wind through already increasingly trafficked residential streets before they get onto Prairie, Hayden, Lancaster, which are becoming the major thoroughfares, especially east-west, which are bringing traffic into from the other areas, as well as what would be leaving and coming in and out of the city. Again, I believe, and I'm going to show it here, I'm going to project something here in a minute, that the mixed use should be on Prairie, Hayden, and Lancaster, as those are going to be the streets that are planned to be widened, and that if people don't have to wind through the smaller residential streets to get to those, it will help us tremendously with our traffic. I think that we need to take a look at how much density is placed along Government Way, right here. I think many of us are seeing how Government Way handles one lane each way, and there is significant amount of mixed use shown on the future land use map, which I'm not sure that without widening Government Way out here, that it will be able to handle significant density. I think we need to take a look at the neighborhood nodes that are in the comprehensive plan and are also in the future land use map, especially in the already developed residential neighborhoods, primarily east of Government Way. These are already established residential neighborhoods, and that the people I've spoken with in those neighborhoods don't really want to see what has been described as, the corner commercial centers and things like that, which developed into those neighborhoods. People seem to be confused or misunderstanding the comprehensive plan, the future land use map, and the current zone map of record. I talked to a lot of people and they kind of interchange all of these things. The future land use map is a document within the comprehensive plan, and in particular related to the land use element of the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan has 17 different elements to it, and the land use is just one of them. There's a difference between the current zone map of record and the future land use map. We must be careful in this process not to downsize or take existing value from property owners as it is on the existing zone map. Okay, we're probably looking for trouble if we do. The survey brought forth an interesting point. And it was pointed out by the gentleman who conducted the survey, and it was a topic, has been a topic of discussion. A small number of people checked the box related to revising the comprehensive plan, but then a number that did not correlate to that indicated that people had not really read, did not know much about the comprehensive plan. So that kind of didn't ring, whatever, and several people have brought that up. As the city has done over the last 2 years, and I use the term surgical changes, I believe that we can hopefully come up with a few more surgical changes. These changes are primarily changes to the future land use map and the zone code text changes, just like I talked about earlier, that have already been done. I don't believe that we need to make wholesale changes to the entire comprehensive plan, as that would most likely entail significant costs to redo the required studies of all elements involved. I'm the one who's been asking for these workshops since long before the survey. I believe that we can all present our ideas and then hopefully work to find ideas that will allow the city to move on and not spend so much time on this single issue that we've been spending on this issue probably since the initiation of the comprehensive plan in 2018. It's almost been nonstop, okay? And if we can do this, and yes, it is a fluid document, before you know it, in a few years, it's going to be time to do the next comprehensive plan. So, it's just one continuous thing, and before you know it, in a couple years, I don't know if there is a date or how long, we will again begin the required process of going through the process of this comprehensive plan all over again. So it's not going to be all that long before we do that. We can make these fluid surgical changes, okay, that hopefully we can all come to an agreement on, and then hopefully allow our understaffed, undermanned woman, got to be careful nowadays, city staff who is overburdened. And I heard some statistics today about the requests that they are getting compared to previous years from the public, to which they address immediately, okay? And they have to put some things off to take care of those and the like. And hopefully we can free them up to do more of the city business that dealing with requests, dealing with these issues that we're hearing about. So, that being said, let's see if I can manipulate this.
Mr. Caprice, well, while you're getting that, because it's already there.
Yeah.
I do need to clarify what mixed residential allows. Mixed residential are not duplexes and triplexes. They are still, residences that are allowed in mixed residential are still single-family residences.
Right.
But they have a common wall.
Right.
So they are deeded land. Each, in your mind, you think of a duplex. Each unit of the duplex is deeded land, deeded to an individual. Just want to make that clear. And the mixed residential allows.
Is that better? Yeah.
Allows up to 3 units. So you can have 3, I'll call them single-family homes with 2 common walls.
Right.
And that is, now, many people call those duplexes, I understand, but actually they are individually owned.
Absolutely.
As opposed to.
And thank you. I think when most people, and you're absolutely right, and I'm going to use the term duplex, triplex, because I'm an old, I know. Okay, how should I call them then?
Townhomes.
Townhomes?
Townhomes.
Townhomes, tri-homes?
Yeah.
Okay. Townhomes are 2 individual homes with a common wall, and tri-homes are 2 common walls with 3.
Right.
Am I correct there? Okay. Well, so I spent a little bit of time marking up with crayons, and this is just my vision, which hopefully people, and obviously will be, totally kicked off, or maybe a little bit of that. Our neighbors to our northwest here have what they call rural ag residential zoning, okay? Our ACI, okay, area out there, I would, instead of having it indicated here, I would
ask that we do it as our neighbors to the Lakeland, Gratham have done there, because we don't know what's going to happen. In all honesty, how long, when, if, or until that area develops, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if this Hutter bypass is ever going to occur. Okay? Some people say, oh yeah, other people say, oh no, I don't know, don't have a clue. And until we do know for sure, I think we need to kind of leave it so that future councils or whoever, when it comes, they can look at the situation and say, what fits best? Where are we in our growth? Okay? And we can get input from the people. Okay? So we have a little bit of a say with what does happen there, instead of saying right now, yep, this is going to be mixed use. All this purple is slated for mixed use. That's roughly 800 acres at even 12 units an acre. Somebody do the math. 9,600 units. Okay. I'm going to suggest that along current Hutter Avenue, this be slated to be commercial. That this slated along Prairie be commercial. Maybe in here have a small pocket of mixed use. This mixed use in the corner here, I don't know why. I would say this is all residential anyway. Let's keep it that way. Again, Hayden Avenue, Prairie, development along Lancaster. These are going to be the major streets. This area up here, okay, I could see mixed use up there because they are going to come out of it and be on these streets right away. There is right now currently mixed use up here in whatever that street is, Dakota or something like that, in like that if you were to develop all of that into higher density stuff, these people are going to be in and out of these residential streets, which are already, if people drive those streets, you know how increasingly heavily trafficked they are becoming. This red hatched area that has a 6, I would say that's where you want to put your mixed residential, your single, your what am I calling? Townhomes, tri-homes, and the like. And I'm not married to reducing to 6 units per acre. Right now it's currently 8. Okay? But the bottom line is, I don't think we need to double that along all of this where it's purple. But again, you'll see where I have mixed use is along the major arterials. Here's Highway 95. Okay, these areas here, Prairie, where people can get out immediately into the big streets and not have to work their way through. This is the area this is Government Way, and this is what I'm talking about. This is for mixed use right along, where are we? Government Way right here. We have some stuff already back in here. And I think we need to be very careful about putting more density in here. I know it was intended to be a walking community. So far, I don't see a walking community developing.
Walking community.
Please, okay? And the traffic situation that we're already facing, if this were to develop without significantly widening Government Way in that area, I think would just turn into a traffic nightmare, okay? So again, and then behind that is pretty much the same, mixed residential, where you have your single, your townhome, your tri-home, and the like back in this area, because it's a fairly mixed already. This up here, done. It's a done. That area is already dealt with. Again, the same thing, rural, agricultural, residential, when you get north of Lancaster. Commercial along the Ramsey extension and the like. Mixed use along Lancaster. Other than that, you'll see most of the changes occur along the major arterials. We try and prevent density from being in what are the current residential single family type neighborhoods. Okay,
So what are your changes that lower density?
Well, we're reducing completely. This is all mixed use to commercial. So if you want to look at that whole swath right there, wherever you see this, all this purple, that goes away and turns into rural ag residential.
Which one?
This purple all along in here.
That's not in Hayden.
Well, that's ACI future land use map. This is the future land use map as it sits right now. And my point being is, we don't know what's going to happen out there, okay? So let's just, as our neighbors have, because I think, I'm going to guess, don't know, that they're probably looking at it the same way. We don't know what's going to happen out there. But instead of saying, yep, that's what it's going to be, let's wait until it becomes closer to being developed and let people determine, let the council or whoever take whatever input to determine whether it fits in what's out there. So reduction in purple in there, reduction in purple up here. But this, I believe, is already underway, so there's not much we can do there. But I think there's significant reduction in density in that, potential density in that. Any other questions?
I have a question, I don't know who can answer it. How difficult would it be to change our comp plan or future land use map to what Ed's proposing?
I can't answer that. I think that's why I think it'd be very similar to what we've done with relationship to the mixed use 1 and 2, and when we changed from residential multifamily. I'm guessing it would be zone code text related to, and I'm getting a head shake, yes, very similar to the zone code text changes, which would then be applied to an updated future land use map.
So if our comp plan is based on a higher density, higher build rate, and this reduces it, then there shouldn't be any significant changes to the sewer and traffic plan. In other words, we wouldn't have to redo all that, would we?
Should.
Should? Okay, and yes, well, I mean, does that mean you reduce it by one house and you have to redo it, or?
Well, if this is a significant change.
Well, that's a question.
And the reason I bring that up, okay. First of all, if you're going to change it to commercial, you're going to have more traffic, so we need to address that, okay? Because if we don't address that, then we'll have a shortfall in transportation development. If we're going to reduce density of residential, we may be overbuilding some of our systems, and we're spending money that we're never going to recoup. The problem that if you just change it and wait for it to come, one of the comments I heard, when we change it to ag and we're not anticipating any growth and we build sewer facilities and everything like that, and then when it comes, it isn't that, then you have the opposite problem. So you do want to think what is the probability, not just we don't know, so we're not going to think about it. I think is an important thing to consider.
I disagree with that. Think about it.
Because you're building your facilities to support the community growth based on what you believe is going to happen and what you're thinking is happening here. So you don't want to overbuild, you don't want to underbuild, right? So it is a little bit of a crystal ball. But if we build a $3 million lift station and we only need a $1 million lift station, there's the point I'm trying to get.
So then my question would be, Glenn Miles reduced the projection for future growth to 2040. It was at 36,000 and now it's 28,000. Do we have to redo it because of that? We're talking about projecting for the future. We already have a reduction that's been projected for Hayden. Do we have to redo everything because of that?
That's why we redo these about every 5 years.
So is your answer then that because we've been reduced from 34,000 to 28,000, that yes, we do need to change all of our transportation studies and things like that?
I don't know where I don't know where that number leaves the city of Hayden.
I was just going to say there is an answer in the comp plan somewhat to this. It's not specific, but it's on page 12 in the demographics section. It says Please note that the population and other demographic estimates may differ throughout the plan due to the time of data collection and or the source of data. It says, however, numbers are similar and do not impact the analysis of overall trends occurring in Hayden. Data sources are cited. It's not perfectly clear what it's saying, but when I read that the first time, I saw that if there were some modifications, because again, those are estimates that they use at 4.5% growth, and then they reduced it down to around 3, that they use those estimates, we wouldn't have to change if it's, even though you're projecting these numbers to be a little bit lower. So when you're talking about me doing, say, the transportation or the sewer, it's going to matter, I guess, on the significance, on the changes. Because if it's a large changes, then we probably should look at, for the very reason Alan's talking about, because we don't want to overbuild systems.
But we're talking about two different growth patterns, right? You're talking about a macro growth pattern. The overall, the city of Hayden may have reduced a little bit.
Yeah.
The projection, right? Because we have a slowing economy. But that's different than saying we're going to take single-family residential, or we're going to take this and we're going to turn it into commercial. Because those streets adjacent to that commercial are significantly more impacted by the commercial than they are if they're residential. So if you're going to move commercial into a residential, something that's residential or multifamily.
You know, I mean, this is Hutter Avenue. I don't see any commercial interior.
So I thought you were going to change that to commercial. You were talking about
Along Hutter Avenue as it currently sits, or even if it may be widened to some degree, replace this strip of mixed use with commercial, as this is already commercial down here along, again, a major, these are major, and this will become a major. I'll tell you right here with regards to this, people talk about open space preservation and the like. Again, this is just my vision, okay? Because of what it already primarily is out here. Down here you have Rickert, Big Sky, whatever it is, very nice acreage developments, ruralish type developments. In here you have a lot of larger acreage and things like that. Personally, I would hope that a lot of this area is conserved for those people who do want, at the very least, residential suburban, if not larger. I hope that this area doesn't eventually end up eliminating the rural nature of primarily the prairie now, because that's what I see happening. I hope that in some way, these areas that are still relatively rural, ag, however you want to describe them, can be preserved to some extent as rural and ag. And you know, and this is kind of why I put the residential as residential suburban.
Okay. Let's move our conversation back. I completely get your concern about the aquifer and the prairie. I get that. But let's roll back to some of the other points that you've made on this, Mr. Dupree.
Yeah.
The area, if Donna, you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but this area here, regardless of how we are zoning it, already has a annexation agreements that limit any development there to 4 homes per acre.
I believe that's in here.
Yes,
Yeah.
all of that area.
Yeah.
Which I would just as soon see since it's limited to 4 homes per acre, I would just as soon see that zone change to single family residential, which is what.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I don't know how far these zone development agreements, we're talking Hayden Avenue and Prairie, and I think we're talking about pretty much in here, is would these people, this underneath my scribbling, they have created this future land use map for mixed residential and mixed use, which are more than 4. So I don't know if that was taken into consideration. I don't, to try and have more discussion about what you just brought up, I don't know where that stands in relationship to that, if that makes sense.
So at the time of annexation for those properties that were considered to be the bluegrass annexation from Prairie to the airport, west of Hutter in that swath, they all have two things that are occurring. The first one is that they have setback requirements for a future anticipated Hutter, which is a significant swath of land that they can't build upon in anticipation of Hutter. They also have the restriction that they can have no more than 4 dwelling units per gross area. So you've
Gross is the key word.
gross area. So the key here is that you're taking, or whoever, when they're constructing, when they go to develop, there's a large swath that is unbuildable because of the Hutter roads. They have road development that they're required to build and green space, and part of them have park areas that are dedicated and what have you. So as you continue to add all of those constraints upon them, they still only can have 4 dwelling units per gross area, but the minimum lot size in a single-family residential lot of 8,250 is another constraint. So by allowing them to potentially come in for a zone map amendment to either mixed residential or mixed use, it affords them the ability to migrate those 4 dwelling units per acre across different kinds of housing stock, but never increasing from a 4 dwelling unit per gross area.
Similar to what we recently had, if I'm not mistaken, with a request just west of the apartments. There was something that came in with and I think I just saw you go like that, of a combination of types which gave them that gross number.
Correct.
Okay? And so again, correct me if I'm wrong here, this would still be the future land use map. And anybody coming in at that time would have the ability to request a zone amendment, zone change, okay? Mm-hmm. Correct. And if at the time that council, whoever it may be at the time, as we do now, would have the ability to say, well, you know, it fits, it works, it's this, it's that, rationale for the decision in life, but there's still that opportunity to have that discussion.
Yes, there is.
And that's pretty much what I.
And to go along with Mr. Mayor over here, the property today is zoned primarily, sorry, Mayor for sale.
Okay, yeah,
Sorry about that. My brain does that sometimes. The property today is zoned primarily residential and does have
On the current zone map.
on the current zone map, which also is not part of this discussion, just to give existing versus possible future.
Right.
Is that an R1?
Single family R1.
But again, I touched on a bit, and you kind of just take me again. Anything that we might do, cannot reduce down zone, I guess is the most common term, from the current zone map. Is that correct? If we were to take something on this map and make it less than what is on the current map, I don't know, let's say we took just for word's sake, a commercial on the current zone map and made it single family or whatever, what might trigger someone saying, wait a minute, yeah, you're taking value from me, and that's one thing that we need to be very careful about doing in whatever process that we engage in.
Yes.
Spoken like a true attorney. Yes. No, very strict. But yeah, that's there. You know, some of the elements of concern here.
To more thoroughly respond, yes, your consideration has to include the impact to private property rights.
Right.
Ms. White, would you like to take a look at the map or come up with things of your own?
Yeah, when Councilmember DePriest is done with this presentation, I would like to.
I think that unless there are any other questions, At this point in time, I yield the floor.
Ms. White?
All right. Well, my first thought is that we really need a town hall on this. These wonderful people have come today, and I know a lot of them are watching their homes being put in zones that they weren't in when they originally moved here. And I think a town hall is in order where we can have people actually come and tell us what they're thinking and feeling about what's going on in our city. I was really rather shocked by this because I thought we were going to go more back a little farther. When I ran, I was running on the premise that we would go back to the 2019 map. Before, I wanted to go back to what happened before the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan brings in too much mixed use, mixed residential. A lot of this takes density out of the hands of the council because it's by right. So once someone has a mixed use zone, they build mixed use, and there's a lot of it here. There's a lot more on the map than was originally, than we had before the comprehensive plan. I think there's just so many flaws in the comprehensive plan and this future land use map that coming in here and shading more zones doesn't really fix the problem. I think it densifies the problem. We have too much mixed use. We need more single-family homes. Let me just read one survey response here. Remove all high density from the comprehensive plan. No apartments, no duplexes. Does not matter what fancy name they might be called. Prioritize current residents over developers. Maintain essential character and history of Hayden families and history of Hayden. Families need housing with green space, not postage stamp yards or no yards at all. Hayden should be distinctive from strip mall sprawl all around us. Developers should not get preferential treatment. Their investment in the community typically ends when they cash the check. We are left to live here. Traffic is unsafe, including drivers are unsafe, due to growth over the past decades, which has not been accompanied by roads. Increase impact fees significantly. And there's any number of responses on our survey where people do not want more density. Now, I would like to bring up Councilmember DePriest's slide one more time if we could. I just want to ask you one question about
Okay.
it. Okay? Okay.
That we went
I'll
there.
leave that slide up there, Mr. Priest.
Go ahead and ask your
Okay.
question, I guess.
Without giving too precise of a location about where do you live?
I live up on Lock Haven, 8116 North Stonehaven Drive, and
And what color is your zone?
it's residential and has been. How come
Future
we?
land use map.
I doubt whether it's changed. It's a fully developed community.
Okay, so fully developed community. So
Oh, PUD, I'm
do
educated.
you,
There it is,
okay.
right there.
so personally, I feel like my home is fully developed. And yet, do you know where my home is on here?
Shall I say?
Go ahead.
It's on D Court, just south of Hayden Avenue.
Right, what color is it there?
It's probably, well, I believe on the new one, I think you are in mixed residential.
No, well, no, future land use map.
Is D, what is D Court currently? Because I know we went through this in the zone change. And I know where's the current map? Because that one is not the current one. I believe D Court is actually,
Family residential on the zone map. I don't know what it is on the future land use map.
yeah, because it's not on the, yeah, on the
I'll show you.
on the zone map,
Okay.
it is not purple.
Yes, it is.
On the zone map?
Future land use map.
Well, again, the current zone map versus the future land use.
Right, okay. So my neighborhood is right here. And my street is fully developed. And yet, before the comprehensive plan, my home was in residential multifamily. It was fully developed. There's nowhere to go, nothing to build there. And then the comprehensive plan was passed, and 17 1,500 letters were sent out to individuals telling us our zone was going to be changed. So my zone went from a residential home to mixed use. It was going to go to mixed use overnight.
Was it
Mr.
Mayor?
changed in the process?
Mr. Mayor?
It was not changed in the process.
Can I just interject here just briefly? So there's a distinct difference between land uses, future land use map. That's a
There
land.
was a notice of zone change.
Hold that thought though.
I know, I don't, this is my turn to talk right now.
Okay,
Okay.
I just,
So
it's not
what
zone,
I'm saying is that
which is the
these
confusion.
changes are being made, future land use map, and because of the changes that were made, it's also affecting our current zones. And we're not going back to before the comp plan. We're moving ahead and getting denser and denser here. And I mean, I see people who here in the room who live in this area. And then I also noticed that this is all purple now. That's in the future land use map, that's all purple. Well, that's also all urban renewal district. And so I just think that our future land use map is not reflecting where we are today and what we are as a city. And this all increases density, and it gives the density into the hands of the developers and the people with those zones.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask that you allow
Just a
John?
second, just a second. First,
Yeah, there you go.
Donna, did you have anything else to say?
One of the things that Councilmember DePriest identified was confusion amongst the public in relationship to the future land use map and the zone designation map. And part of that confusion comes from the fact that we keep mixing terms. So a future land use map is talking about future land uses. Future is the key word here. And our existing zone map talks about what our existing zone designation is. And unless or until somebody comes in and requests a zone map amendment from their existing zone, what they are today, to a new zone, they can do it in conformance with whatever the future land use map designates, or they could do a request for both a zone map amendment and a future land use map amendment. And when we talk about zones on the future land use map, that's where the confusion lies, is that the future land use map is a future possible path. What we believe is in a big broad brushstroke, using a big marker and painting big swaths, big planning, 5,000 foot level kind of behavior. Not what the existing zone designations are. That's all I was trying to clarify, so that we don't mix the fact that this map does not have zone designations. It has land use designations.
Okay, thank you. Ms. White?
Yes. In April of 2021, I was sent a notice of zone change letter that was going to put my home in mixed use. There was a notice of zone change. And
It was a letter that went out to 1,700 folks.
Correct.
In hindsight, I've said this at many, many meetings, probably shouldn't have done that. But that letter said that if you wanted to change, if you wanted to change in conformance with the future land use map, it gave you the opportunity, again, opportunity to make that change. Councilmember White brought up really good points, her and her husband, which is around here somewhere, I saw him back there, brought up really, really good points when they came in and talked to staff after those letters. They were probably one of the best advocates for all of the reasons why we shouldn't have done that. So she's absolutely correct. Those folks that were in areas that were in the residential multifamily zone designation were phased out, and they received letters that said that they would change to a new designation. And that may be the letter that you received, but I don't remember what you were before. So Those were the only folks that received letters that said they would change to a new designation, were those that were in a residential multifamily zone. Really, really good dialogue was had by all through that process, and I don't want to miss the point that we heard good dialogue from all the residents during that absolute fiasco timeframe. So, very positive public responses, good and bad, but good responses.
Mr. Mayor?
And change the trajectory of the path forward.
Absolutely.
We're individuals, and it seems to me, and I could be mistaken, were individuals allowed to say, I want my property to stay this way, or I want it to be designated this way? And were those people accommodated?
Ultimately, all the folks that were not in the residential multifamily zone designations, it became council's direction that we weren't changing them at all.
Right.
So then we went back and evaluated each of the residential multifamily zone areas on a case-by-case basis and
And
went
had a
forward.
comprehensive workshop and public hearing process.
Ms. White?
Still, this future land use map is a cloud of rezoning hanging over every residence of this city. And that's what I ran on, is seeing the end to this future land use map. And to see this all marked up and let's just, recodify it doesn't make the mark. I would like to read one public comment here from a city council meeting. A gentleman stated that City Council has acknowledged that the comprehensive plan and the future land use map are complex and confusing, and he thinks that maybe members don't understand it at the time it was approved. He asks that the city considers putting the entire future land use map and the housing and land use elements of the comprehensive plan into an interim ordinance, so that everyone can get a better understanding of what the consequences are. He would like to request that the city make the 2019 zoning map the future land use map. He thinks that the city needs to look at approving things for the day and time, including reviewing how it affects the city, the people of the city. Is it beneficial? Can the infrastructure handle it? Will it pay for itself over time? And are the taxpayers going to be on the hook for residual costs down the road?
Who said that?
A gentleman in this room.
Now, let me respond to that, please.
Just a second, Mr. Dupree.
Yeah.
Ms. White, then, are you saying that you will not support any of the rezoning efforts that we're going to unless it becomes the 2019 map?
I don't believe that, yes, I don't believe that fixing the
For clarification, you're not talking about rezoning, you're talking about...
I'm sorry, thank you very much. You are correct. That you will only be happy if everything becomes the 2019 map.
I would like to see, I think we need to look at it closer and get rid of the mixed use and as much as we can go back and lower the density and take away a lot of this future land use map that's overhanging the populace.
I am happy to work with, as you made a qualifier there, as much as we can, but if your only approval is going to be conditioned on returning to the 2019 map, that's pretty much a non-starter for everybody. So are you willing to look at some alternatives to returning to the 2019 map, or are you just going to stop right now and say 2019 map is the only way to go?
I'm willing to talk about it, but I think that we need to really reconsider the density and look into the codes and make mixed use not a by right code. Give the city council some more input on what goes on. And we need to, there's a lot of changes that need to be made. I think when I first came on city council, I thought right away we were going to make some changes before we made the changes to the residential multifamily code and zoning and all that. But we've gotten deeper as time has gone on. We're finally sitting down and talking about it, but it doesn't look like
The reason we're sitting down and talking about it now is we now have a legally defensible survey that gives us an opportunity that if we do make zone changes and are challenged on it, we have a basis to fall back on. It took a while to come up with that. I will certainly grant you that. But we now have a legal basis with that survey for actually looking at this.
Question, Mayor,
Yes,
when you say legally defensible, that goes to my point, and if this is what it means, is that we amend our comprehensive plan to include it.
I agree.
We have it in there. It's part of the comp plan. Then we have a legally defensible comp plan based on the results in that survey. Was that?
Well, we're just throwing out ideas here today, but I understand your point.
Is that, I'm just saying, is that what I see, I think I'm hearing? Is that? Okay.
Since my comment was invoked, I'm going to respond. I've said this and people have heard me say this. Before I was elected, I probably spoke at almost every planning commission and council meeting for almost a year before the election. When I initially started talking, I had really no clue. I wanted a moratorium, and I wanted this, and I wanted that. But as you get into this stuff, you get educated, and primarily you get educated as to what the state statutes allow or not. And a lot of things that I would like to see happen, we have no control over because it's the state that determines the statutes that we have to follow, okay? So some of those comments on there that I made earlier, yeah, those are things that I, in my utopial world at that point in time, was hoping that we could do, but find that if we were to do those things, we would find ourselves in a world of hurt, if not litigation, et cetera, which anybody knows litigation becomes extremely taxpayer costly, even and especially if you lose, and you get damages and the like applied to you. And that's taxpayer money. So I have had to, based on my education as to the realities of what the state statutes require us to do, and a process for being able to do those things, I have had to, yes, change my approach to property rights. And I hear, it's an interesting issue. I hear a lot of people talking about property rights from all sides. You know, when they want something, it's property rights. When it's on the other side, it's well, you know, property, it's either or, okay? I live in a black and white world when it comes to this stuff, really. And a lot of this is, okay, the future land use map, again, you have to apply for it. And with our criteria, standards of approval, context of neighborhood, et cetera, just because the map has it on it, if it can be demonstrated that it is not correct for that location, the council does have the opportunity of saying, because of these facts, we do not feel that this should be approved. So it's just because it says it there doesn't mean that's what it's going to be.
I have actually, we can look at it right here now, but if council will allow me, I have some concrete examples that I would like to point out that I have some concerns with that council may also. I live in this mixed residential area right here. My neighbors, back before I became mayor and I was going around doing petitions, were, of the 116 people I contacted, 116 did not like being in a mixed residential neighborhood or mixed residential zone on the future land use map. We've heard testimony from folks that live up in this area, around Dakota. One of the things that our citizen involvement survey showed us was the importance that citizens place on open space. I suspect that the reason that these two areas were put into a mixed residential was that they are more open areas. The neighborhoods generally are not as crowded. They're larger lots. And here there are some very large lots. I believe the citizen survey showed us that this open space area is good. The area that I live in here, the neighbors feel strongly about preserving the open space area there. I'd suggest to you
that these areas on the future land use map return to a single-family residential. Now, that is not without danger. And there is a small area here adjoining D Court. By the way, adjoining D Court, that the lot size does not meet the minimum. We would have to try to figure out a way to work around that. But open space is important to folks. Much of this area, some of it, is designated as residential suburban, which allows only one home on a half-acre lot. That's the type of neighborhood that my neighbors feel is important. And although I haven't talked to all of these other folks here, these folks feel it more. So I would suggest we consider returning this area to single-family residential.
Yeah.
Mr. Ruder, I have not even recognized you yet. Please go ahead.
By the way, this is all what government should be, is we have ideas and we bounce them off each other, and I think that this is really healthy. So I want to thank everybody. But one of the things that I want to bring out is I sit on the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board. We service the sewer in Hayden. Not everybody's on the sewer, connected to the sewer. So there are septic tanks that are also been approved by Panhandle Health, and as long as they stay healthy, the septic systems stay healthy, they're okay with it. My concern is, at our last meeting, the amount of residential hookups that were available were just over 1,000 that the capacity of the sewer plant has. Delivering the sewer to the sewer plant can always be added and changed and so forth, but the sewer plant, once you get to the capacity, you have to enlarge it. And enlarging capacity is very, very expensive, millions and millions of dollars. Why I'm bringing this up is we're in the throes of possibly taking over the city of Hayden, taking over the sewer district from the county and the Hayden Lake Recreation and Sewer District. Instead of having 3 votes, we just have one entity managing, which is a lot more efficient. So this is my point, is that I don't want to see that we have to increase our sewer rates or charge more taxes so that we have to increase the size of that sewer plant, which is a function of growth and density. So my point is that any way through adjustments here that we can reduce density or reduce the amount of growth rate, I'm for, because I do not want to have additional costs to our people in Hayden to upgrade a sewer plant, because guess who's going to pay for it? We are. And that's not, in my mind, fair to people that have lived here 5 years, 2 years, 20 years, 50 years, to have to pay for new people coming in. So I want to bring that point into the comp plan, that I'd like to see the comp plan amended to deal with that question. What kind of growth will it take to where now it's going to cost $20, $50 million to upgrade that sewer plant to accommodate new growth? We don't have the answer to that question. I think that's an important question. Where is that point at? And do the people want to go there?
Ms. White.
I just want to ask the question of why are we putting future zones on established properties where people live?
Because we're required to, by the Local Land Use Planning Act, to have a comprehensive plan that identifies the growth and path forward by City Council. And
That's state statute?
That is a state statute, Idaho code.
Wait a minute.
So why can't we make the future land use map more of a reflection of what we are? Because
Excuse me.
I feel like,
Sir, why, please?
I feel like it's a cloud of doom. I mean, you're overshadowing homes and established businesses with something that someone else can come and claim, and their claim has more weight than the current residents. And then I feel like it needs to reflect more of what we are and not too much of a drastic change.
How can the non-property owner exercise their desires over the property owner? You just said it's a, you just said something to the effect, if I heard you right, that somebody can impose their designs on somebody who doesn't own the property.
I believe what Ms. White was referring to is that people at this table are imposing their
But
ideas.
it's not imposed until it's actually changed.
Are imposing their ideas.
Ideas, yeah.
Well, so far,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Cut you off, Mr. Mayor.
I did not mean to speak for you. You go ahead.
So, this past year, most of the zone changes that have come up, we have given. And it just, I feel like each zone change that we've given has increased density. And based on this future land use map, which is a guide, but it's a guide of density, is what it is. It's not a guide of lower density, it's a guide of density. And we're here talking about how do we lower the density. Well, we can modify the guide a little bit, but it's still there. It doesn't, the future land use map does not mirror what we are. And I don't understand, I mean, I understand, I just don't like the idea of a cloud of higher density hanging over established properties. Now, what if we were to change the mixed use back to commercial and change the commercial code so people could, go back to the code we had where commercial could have a residence on it. And I would like to see some changes like that. Lower the density of the mixed use.
Comments?
One of the projects that we did consider for our zone change, they wanted to go from commercial to putting apartments in on Hayden Avenue. And we said no. So, we have made decisions like that. The problem that I have, and I think the other council members have, is that when you deny a zone change, you have to see legally, can we do it? Are we within the law? And that's why we have to rely on our attorney to deny something. And that's always a challenge. So we have reduced density, if you will, on some of our decisions, not all of them.
One of the, excuse me here.
Mr. Cruz.
Yeah. One of the biggest comments that I get from almost everybody relates to affordable housing. Or our children can't live here. There's no places that they can afford to live here. In my utopian world, would I have the entire place, everybody gets their half-acre lot? Great. Okay? That isn't going to facilitate anywhere near enough housing for the people who are here, let alone the people who will keep coming here. So part of this future look is, at least on my part, the recognition that yes, it is a reality, and you have to respect the fact that people do have children and grandchildren that they would like to live somewhat in the near vicinity and be able to afford to live. Now, if you eliminate all, as I think I've heard, of the mixed use / apartments, because that's really what, when you hear that term, that's what you think about. How do you reconcile to those people that, well, yeah, that's the way it goes, man. Over there, you can go over there, but we aren't going to provide any here for you. And again, we referred to the survey. It was indicated in the survey that people do recognize a need for a variety of housing. And whether we like it or not, agree with it, want to see it or not, an element of that variety is our apartments. So we have to have some level on there, and I think for the most part, moving, if we have mixed use, to the, shall we say, outskirts, again on the major roads, which gives people access all over the place. If they aren't on Lancaster, let's say, then I guarantee you Post Falls is going to continue to build apartments, and they're going to be coming through this way anyway to visit their parents who live up on Lock Haven. They're going to be coming through our town either way. There's going to be traffic coming from wherever in North Idaho, Kootenai County, where whoever builds it is going to facilitate the density, the people, which are going to clog our roads, use our stores, make us wait 3-4 weeks, if that, not longer, for a doctor's appointment, okay? So I at least have to feel we have to recognize that yes, in a utopian world, we don't want any, but we have to provide some level of housing for people who cannot afford homes. And that's, I think we have already reduced significantly the potential down the road related to what's on the future land use map.
Where do you want to go from here?
Town hall.
I'm sorry?
A town hall, please.
Town hall?
I'd like to hear what people have to say.
Okay, I tend to rely on the survey that we have versus a town hall. I'm happy to let people have their say, but I'm not sure how valuable that input is going to be when you compare it to the how many 1,000 or so people that already responded to that survey. However, council wants to do it, we'll do it.
I thought there's at least 20 people who would come to a town hall and say something.
How many?
At least 20.
And the population of Hayden is how much?
Yeah, I know.
And raising their hand.
Well, these are, excuse me.
Can't see anything.
Yeah, that's the problem.
We have a group behind us of concerned citizens. That's just awesome. That's great, particularly coming here at 2 o'clock on an afternoon. But should council decide to do that, we'll do it. But I am unclear as to what we would learn from a town hall meeting that we don't already know. The cherry-picked comment, I can go into that survey, Ms. White, and also show all kinds of comments that are directly or reasonably contradictory to the ones that you pointed out. Going with single citizen comments, I'm not sure that really gets us further down the road in trying to decide what we want to do about the future land use map. Clearly, there are citizens that feel that way, and those comments you read were well done. Well, except for the one from Mr. DePriest.
Mr. Mayor, may I offer a suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
So one of the, in my experience, I've worked through a number of comprehensive plans with different governmental entities, and they handle it differently. But the format of a town hall is generally used in the term of a workshop, not in this format, but a community workshop. After your decision makers identify sections of the comprehensive plan or goals and objectives that they wish to see amended. And then you, and I'll remind you, in Idaho Code 67-65 et sec, which deals with the Local Land Use Planning Act, it's the role of your Planning and Zoning Commission to actually draft and put forward to council amendments to your comprehensive plan. So as we move forward, I don't want us to ignore the statutory role of planning and zoning in this. But what's useful is for council to give some targeted direction to planning and zoning on sections of the comprehensive plan. You have, 10 different chapters that you're obligated to have, and each of those chapters has goals and objectives, and start identifying as a group goals and objectives and sections of chapters that you'd like planning and zoning to start working on amending to be more consistent in your viewpoint with these survey results that I agree with Council President Roeder now are it's a nice defensible set of data to utilize for this amendment. Get some draft amendments in place and then workshop with your community. Have an open house here in the afternoon for 3 or 4 hours where community members can come in and have dialogue and they can talk about these suggested changes that they like or goals and objectives. Open house style. Yes, it gives people an opportunity to speak. Sometimes you'll have 2 or 3 of those before you really get a good sense that your community as a whole is feeling now like, okay, we've been heard and we're seeing the result of our words coming out in these amendments that we're seeing. And then in the process, don't lose sight of the fact that under the Local Land Use Planning Act, your future land use map does not drive the chapters of your comprehensive plan. Your goals and objectives in your comprehensive plan are manifest in the result of your future land use map. So we're kind of looking at it a little backwards here. And it's those goals and objectives that need to be addressed that will naturally flow into an amendment of your future land use map when those are adjusted after work by amendments. And this roundtable is a really good place to start to get some understanding from your council members, which have had input from the community as to where their concerns are. But it's not going to be useful to just continue to hash out generalities. You really need to start diving into those goals and objectives and figure out which ones you're uncomfortable with and which ones you'd like to see some changes to. That's just my suggestion.
Mr. Mayor?
So your suggestion is rather than firing a shotgun up in the air, where the pellets are going to land, we at least give them a target so they can point the shotgun at it.
I do, and to really start to recognize the flow of the work product. Your future land use map is the result of your goals and objectives in your chapters, not the other way around.
Interesting, okay. Good comments, thank you.
Based on what Council has just said, I would suggest that we plan a workshop with planning and zoning, because as I understand it, they basically have to drive and the issue here. Am I correct?
You're correct. Under 67-6508, and a few chapters after that, it's the Planning and Zoning Commission's responsibility to conduct the comprehensive planning process, prepare, implement, and review and update a comprehensive plan. And then they put it forth to council for adoption. But usually where you workshop with planning and zoning is after planning and zoning has come up with amended language, then you workshop with them to say, yep, we're on board with this, or we'd like some adjustments here. You want a successful process with the community at your first, second, you may have 2 or 3 public hearings, but even just like your entire comprehensive planning process before. But the open house concept is where you can, it's just a suggestion, there's no magic wand here, it's where you can give some more public comment opportunities to the public.
The reason I suggest having the workshop with planning and zoning is so that it's eventually going to come through us again. Whatever they may come up with is going to come through us for approval, type of thing, as the process plays out. If we don't have an initial workshop with them, they need to understand kind of what our goals, what we're looking at. Otherwise, theoretically, hypothetically, you could have them come with something that is totally unrelated to what we've been talking about here today, and we'd say, no way. So I think there needs to be some communication, sharing of ideas with the planning and zoning, similar to what's happening here today, so that we could follow the statutory process and that it would be productive in an efficient time manner, rather than have something come back where we just look at it and go, no, not, sorry, let's try again.
But you need to have some sense of a unified direction to planning and zoning. It's not fair to have 4 different sets of direction given to them in moving forward in the process.
Yeah, to answer that question, my own directive would be to either staff or planning and zoning is show us the ways to reduce density and reduce the rate of growth. Because I don't know all the possibilities. These are complex issues. let's get those ideas out and let's sort those out. But that would be the general direction I like to give both staff and planning and zoning. Show us what are those possibilities, we sort through those. I like Ed's asking, yes. But let's staff and planning and zoning and then with those ideas that we come up with, either it's town hall or whatever meeting we're going to call it, bring those forth and let the public have a response to it. And then we can make
Do it in the form of specifically targeted goals and objectives in your chapters in the comprehensive plan. That's really where your amendments happen.
But that's just a generalized, but maybe we can get help in focusing on
Yes,
those.
correct.
That's my point.
Yeah, yes, but identify those. I mean, I think knowing you well enough, you're going to be looking at transportation. We're going to be looking at sewer. I mean, I just think there's going to be some very targeted areas that you need to be very familiar with those current goals and objectives so that you can look, based on the information you received in your survey, where some adjustments can be made.
Mr. Mayor. I was just going to mention, I don't think we spent time with P&Z on the survey. And so I think stepping back, because there are some high-level direction that would go along with this, along with what I think Matt just said, in that the survey showed that people were concerned with the rate of growth. There's some density issues, transportation issues as well, but I think as far as planning and zoning, and that they also saw that a variety of housing units. So you have some overarching themes that they need to be made aware of, and so I think we need to take the survey to them and bring them up to speed on that. What I hear today, there was some very specific areas that, I mean, you were pointing at some areas in the future land use map. How can we reduce, density? And I think giving them some general direction, like what you're saying is what are some ways we can do that, and then letting them look at some of those ways, as well as maybe some specific areas, as the mayor brought up, some areas that people have had some concern with, that they could start to go through that, and it may take some more time specifically to hear all of you again. All of those areas, I see yours, and I heard yours, but you both may have that. So that's high level. Then we had Councilmember White, your comment about wanting to go back to the old comp plan. Well, what would that entail? And then maybe we're past that, as far as there's not interest in doing that, or there's too much there, because you still had multifamily and you had density, if I remember right, that was even higher on the 2019 plan than it is on the current map. And so just going back to 2019 doesn't decrease density. It does affect certain neighborhoods. And maybe we can fix the concern in those specific neighborhoods by going back to maybe some R1 or something in certain areas that you're concerned with. So I think along with that, off to the side, and this gets to Alan's area, as we come up with these ideas of how we reduce density, we may have to have a look, we may have to have a consultant look at how is that going to affect the transportation and sewer. And maybe it's just initially, it's a high-level look. Do we need to redo this or not? And they could say, okay, these are the changes. Do we need to redo this?
We didn't have to have them at the same time. We did all this at once because we were so far behind on all of it.
Yeah.
But, if we're going to make a change and we're going to go revisit our stuff in 5 years, it probably isn't, 2 years isn't going to be.
When is the anticipated initiation of the next version of the comprehensive plan?
Usually like
2 years.
2 years from now?
or 2 years or
Yeah,
something.
so by the time we get through all of this, we're almost going to be into it again, starting over again.
Okay. So I heard some, I think I heard some high-level direction, and I liked what Wanda said as well. One clarification different, and this isn't to encourage growth or otherwise, but when there's an expansion at the plant, the sewer plant, the cost for that expansion should be coming out of what's called capitalization fees, which are paid by growth, not by the citizens. And so the current project that we're doing, there were 3 categories. There was replacement, regulatory, and expansion. The citizens, the amount we're paying on that for expansion, the citizens are not paying that. That money's coming out of capitalization fees. And so, just a clarification on that, so that people understand that when we go to expand the plant or expand our system, we're using dollars that came from when you bought your house. We're putting that back in to expand the plant. The problem is there may not always be enough to cover that, and you have to look at grants and other things. But getting deeper, I just wanted you to know, expansion dollars are paid for out of growth dollars.
For a possible action item in our next meeting, could we amend our comprehensive plan by adding the survey results to? That would be probably maybe a good step so that P&Z says, yeah, this is important, we'll look at it. It's part of the comp plan.
That's a big, long public hearing process to, you would be essentially amending the comprehensive plan anyways. It needs to go to planning and zoning first, then has to come to council, so if
We still have to start there.
you start there anyways, yeah. And I do appreciate what Brett had to say. I do think it's really important, given this dialogue today, that we workshop planning and zoning and catch them up to speed on the survey results.
Do you anticipate a written direction to planning and zoning on, or do you think that after a workshop, planning and zoning can get started? How do you see that?
I think that once they are caught up to speed on the survey results, that's probably going to produce questions from them up to you at that point. And so it's going to come back to you. They're going to ask you for some direction at that point.
That's why I think it should be a joint workshop to say, they're going to have questions at the time that can be discussed at the time instead of having to go, like that.
Right.
Well, at the start anyway, assuming that planning and zoning is not well acquainted with the survey,
What could be happening simultaneously is catching planning and zoning up on the survey results while more council members work on the goals and objectives that cause them the most concern.
okay.
So they're ready to go with that at the time that planning and zoning is caught up.
Sounds like a reasonable approach. Council comments? Okay. Other items of interest? If we won't, we'll have the council meeting tonight to talk about those. Great. Let's, as council members and myself, let's start looking at the goals and objectives in the comp plan, so we have an opportunity to give planning and zoning some direction on how we'd like to see things analyzed.
Are you asking if there's anything else, like from the survey, different topic that you want to address tonight?
No, I'm looking at either growth issues or the survey. Anyone have any other comments on growth issues or the survey? Okay. Hearing none. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. Second. And thank you guys for coming today. We appreciate it.